بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. حياكم الله جميعا and good to see you again. May Allah bless such gatherings and use us all subhanahu wa ta'ala in whatever brings us closer to Him, exalted He is. So this is our second session inshallah ta'ala, and of course the subject pertinent to this class is to establish the foundations of our beliefs in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His deen in order to protect ourselves, our families, and the community and whomever is around. And since we sense and observe that the West is raging an intellectual war against the Islamic communities, and not only the Islamic communities, but the values of people living on this globe. And they are reaching a level where they have started to change communities to live a lifestyle of the West, carrying the values of the West. Before they used to do that through armies, sanctions, but today they don't need to go to that extent to spend so much fortune in order to deliver their degeneracy to the other communities. Rather, through media and through the internet, they were able to reach every pocket and instill within those who carry those devices within their hands and deliver the message that they want. When we see that they have reached a level of being masters of media, masters of production of movies, Hollywood and the likes, and how they're using so much very well spent on means to attract even the children, not only the grown-ups, but also the children, to enjoy the lifestyle of the West and accept the values of the West. This being the case, then we need to also make sure that we protect ourselves and protect our families and children. Especially these days when we look around and see that our children, our youth, are neglected by their families. The families are abandoning their roles when it comes to taking care of their kids and looking after them. As if, subhanAllah, as if when they give a mobile or a tablet to a child, as if it is a safe haven for that child. There is no fear from what might influence his behavior or way of thinking and so on. And this is scary, wallahi. It is scary. When you look around you, wallahi, all over the place, a child walking with a mobile in his hand, a youngster walking with a mobile and open internet in his hand. When you see a child who is in second grade or third grade, and he goes to the school with the mobile in his hand, what do you expect from that child? When you see a father and a mother going on a weekend to enjoy themselves and have fun with their kids to a park or somewhere, and all through while the father is driving, the video is playing movies for the children, and is not even communicating with his children. Even when they are out together, they are not communicating with each other. So imagine the level of influence that this media would have upon our kids and our youngsters. This being the case, then we need really to at least save the most that we can, and at the same time to protect ourselves in the first place, because we'll be confronted with so many doubts that may shake your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you're not ready, you can be carried away by the flow and really shift from the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be upon. So this being the case, we really need to protect ourselves in the first place and to be ready for these major changes that's going around us and really drifting everyone away from what Allah wants us to be upon. So this being said, what are the means, as an introduction before getting into the course, we need to understand what are the means in which we need to follow to protect ourselves from what's going around us, from the level of major changes that almost afflicting everyone. It's afflicting, subhanAllah, everyone. You will see a da'iyah in his house, you will see an alim in his house, but his child is influenced by this media. And the da'iyah is calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, traveling the entire globe, calling to Allah, having well-established aqidah, and the shaitan and this device are doing the damage in his own house. He's trying to save the globe in his own house, he fails to protect, subhanAllah. So it is so damaging, wallahi. And it's almost affecting everyone around us. So what is our share here in order to protect ourselves, our families, our surrounding, and do our share and meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yawm al-qiyamah, while we are not neglecting our role in this life. At least we are doing our share. So once we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will not hold us accountable for neglecting our roles as a family member, as a fellow member in this community. So first of all, we need to establish our yaqeen, our certitude in the fundamentals of Islam. So we need to go all the way to the very beginning. I mean, sadly, we are in a time where we have to go all the way back to convince people that Allah exists. This was never the case throughout history. Until recently, this phenomenon started to grow. And the issue of Allah's existence, it is an axiomatic issue. We don't even need to even discuss it, or even worry about proving to someone that Allah exists. But today, with the great, and ambitious propaganda and spread of those doubts, they're even questioning the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they present it in a package which makes it look as very scientific and logical. While when you just look to the surface of this entire doubt, you see it's so incoherent, so inconsistent, and so weak in its content and its arguments. But because it is packaged by a specific academy or a scientist in the West, they make it look as if it is something worth value and worth looking into and reading and try to understand their argument. While when you look to the lifestyle of this scientist, so-called scientist, you will see this the same scientist who's questioning Allah's existence is also spreading the issue of homosexuality. And he tries to make it also look scientific and normal, biologically normal, for a man to change his gender to a female, or to a man to marry a man. The same guy who's calling to atheism, he's calling also to homosexuality. This tells you that these people are corrupt in everything. We should not trust them in anything. Yes, he is a professor in a very prestigious university, but he is so corrupt. Even with this, values which are instilled in every human being. This guy is violating something which is axiomatic. Yet, because he has this title, people, present him as if he should be followed and listened to. So, this is why, because we are in a time where people, even us Muslims, give so much value to these corrupt individuals. And we ourselves, sadly, always bring them forward as if they are the leaders, that they are the role model that our youth and children should look up to. But when you really scrutinize into their lifestyle, you see, wallahi, the shaitan is in a human disguise. You see the shaitan in a human disguise. And it's becoming apparent now. Alhamdulillah ta'ala, that the phenomena of homosexuality and who stands in preaching for it are exposed. Because before that, you used to think that those people are scientific, mashallah, We send our children to study and learn from these people. But these people now are calling for so much degeneracy beyond human ability to imagine. Yet we are still sending our youth and children to go and acquire knowledge from such corrupt people. We send them to the West, to universities. These exactly same people who are preaching for homosexuality are teaching our children all the corruption and so on. So we are surrounded in an environment, although we are here in a Muslim country, but wallahi, with the media and the accessibility of information and the tyranny of technology, it's reaching us whether we like it or not. So we need to have preventive measures in order to safeguard ourselves, our communities, and our children. And again, like I said, the first thing is to establish our certitude in our Islamic principles. Even if we have to go back to the stage where we need to understand and prove that Allah exists. We need to have well-established logical proofs in order to, first of all, to protect ourselves and to solidify our certitude in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, once we are confronted with any doubts that attack such values, we are there to defend it. And we are ready to defend it. Especially ourselves, our families, and those who are around us. And how can we get certitude in the principles of Islam? First, through observing Allah's universal signs. When you look into the world and Allah's creation, every creature has a fascinating story that speaks that it is a creature in which, if we search deeply into the biological nature of this creature, you see amazing ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that leaves no space for any so-called scientist to come and claim that this is a product of blind coincidence. Just look into Allah's creatures around and try to look into the nature of the creatures, the biological nature, the social nature, and see how everything is put in a place where it fits. This issue really makes you fascinated by those existing creatures, and that they cannot definitely be a product of blind coincidence. Rather, there is a creator who brought them into existence, who deserves to be well respected, well loved, and well obeyed, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah tells us immensely in the Quran to look to His ayat. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth are signs for those who have intellect. So سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ. We shall show them our signs in the horizon and within themselves until they see that it is the haqq, the truth from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is asking us to reflect and siru fi manakibiha, and walk on earth and look around you to be convinced and guided that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. Allah says in the beginning of Surah Al-Jathiyah, إِنَّ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, ayat, signs for the believers. Just looking to the heavens and the earth is enough sign that we are caused by Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ لَآيَاتٍ إِنَّ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ لَآيَاتٍ إِنَّ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَآيَاتٍ. What was the ayah I said? Help me here, guys. إِنَّ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ الْجَاثِيَةِ إِنَّ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. جزاك الله خير. And then He says, وفي خلقكم وما يبث من دابة آيات لقوم يوقنون. See how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is moving into stages. Just to look to the heavens and the earth, enough sign for you to believe, to become a believer. But to become more certain, yuqinun, you look into the creatures which are changing before you. You see a child is born, right? You see واختلاف الليل والنهار, the day and night are changing. These are more logical and observed signs that may increase your certitude in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he said in the ayah, وَمَا أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ من رزق فأحيا بالأرض بعد موتها وبث فيها من كل دابة آيات لقوم يعقلون. Now you're using your intellect by observing more signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So Allah in the Quran is giving us the full procedure to be guided to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He displayed so many signs which are fascinating signs to really blow our mind that this is a product of a great creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, watching documentaries that speak about our creation, our physical, biological nature, and knowing, subhanAllah, if you look, that a tiny gland within our body, if it gets defected, this entire body collapses. When you look to a single organ and you see how complex it is, just look to the eye and how many subhanahu wa ta'ala organs or sub-organs within the eye itself are there to make the eye work. If one of them fails, the eye fails to work, to function. What does this tell you? So is it logical to go and listen to someone who claims to be scientific and say that this body is a product of blind coincidence? Wallahi, it's not. But sadly, we see people out there, especially through the YouTube channels, and who are debating the atheists, and they're using so complex approach to convince them that Allah exists, an approach that only maybe that person who may understand a bit of it, but the commoners, they don't know what you're talking about, as if you are a sahir and you are writing some sihr, some magic, where nobody can read it and understand it. Is it so hard to prove that Allah exists? Billah alaykum? Seriously, ikhwan. I mean, do we need to go to that complex way of arguing to prove that Allah exists, just to present one of Allah's creatures and take a tiny organ within that creature is a sign that Allah is there. So seriously, when you watch such documentaries that really venerates Allah's creation and displays how it is so complex. When Allah created this complex cosmos and creatures, Allah could have made it so simple. But rather He made it so complex to leave no room for any person to come and in a foolish manner say, this is not created by God. It came by coincidence. Such person has no excuse whatsoever. Don't tell me, I grew up in an area where everybody is questioning Allah's existence, therefore I am excused for not knowing that Allah exists. No, you're not excused. You have seen enough signs that you cannot be but a product of the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these people, when they are fooling themselves and fooling others and making this foolishness look as if it is scientific, they need to be exposed. They need to be put into the right level in which they deserve. That those people are not worth even listening to or looking what they are producing. So do we really need to go to an extent and try to argue with these people in a so complex manner, where when you look back in history, when the philosophers during the early stages of Islam started to question Allah's existence, and some of the Muslims stepped forward to try to defend Islam, they used the same tools of these philosophers, and they introduced ilm al-kalam, which became the tool used to prove Allah's existence, as if we don't have enough evidences for Allah's existence. What was the result of this methodology in trying to argue with the philosophers and prove Allah's existence? It was a devastating deviance from the Islamic guidance, especially in Aqidah itself. We end up having a big group of people like the Jahmiyyah, the Mu'tazila, the Asha'ira. They are affirming Allah's existence, but a creator who has no attributes. They do ta'wil to the attributes. Because if you say if Allah has attributes, then He is caused, they say. We cannot affirm those attributes. What we fear today, when we see some of the du'at out there using this approach in trying to convincing the philosophers of our time, or those who are influenced by the philosophers of our time, that Allah exists, we see clearly that they are doing damage to our aqidah. I mean, not only they are confusing the commoners and making it look, it is so tough to prove to people that Allah exists. We need to be well educated in philosophy. We need to go for 4 years to university to learn philosophy in order to be so articulate and using the same tone and language as those philosophers are using. We don't need to do that. And those who are calling people to do such a thing, they are deceiving the Muslims, wallahi. And they are harming themselves and the Muslims. Because when you go and learn philosophy in the first place, I'm maybe going out of the way, but seriously, ikhwan, those who are saying among the du'at, we need to learn philosophy and understand philosophy. Who are the lords of philosophy? They are people who are confused themselves. When you read for them, they were never guided to Allah. They were never guided to Islam. So what khair, what goodness do you expect from these people? Plus, when you look into their writings and what they write, you never understand it. You need to do so much gymnastics in order to reach a level of understanding and waste so much time. At the end, what are you trying to understand? Garbage. Garbage that may take you to hellfire or hell. Wallahi al-azim, ikhwan. Is it worth wasting time to read for people who are atheists? People who became lunatics at the end of their life and we're still reading for him, like Nietzsche. Wallah, it's a waste of aqidah, waste of deen, and waste of logic hatta, to go to an extent and waste our life trying to understand people who are confused and confusing others and try to make sense out of what they are saying. So be careful, because this is what causing people today to think that the way out to defend our belief in Allah's existence is following this approach. It will not take you anywhere. Because if it does, it will do the same damage to you like it did to the early Muslims who went on and argued with the philosophers of their time and ended, introducing a wrong aqidah in Allah Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So be very careful. And sadly, lately I've heard one of the major articulate speakers in the West, whom everyone looks to, is, when it comes to aqidah, he's following the Ash'ari approach when it comes to Allah's attributes, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although he claims that he's Athari, he is Salafi, he is foreign, but when he explains his position in Allah's names and attributes, you are surprised. From where do we get this? Looking and reading in such books and claiming that I've reached a level of understanding and intellect where I can go and read everything. Be careful. Don't do that, don't do that. Like I said earlier, our righteous predecessors, if a Mubtadi' comes closer to them, try to argue, they turn away from him. They don't give him a chance even to speak, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why would I endanger my aqeedah in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and go open books which has so much deviance with them? So we need to be very careful. So again, we need to reflect upon Allah's universal science. Universal science through like documentaries and watching things which really makes you fascinated by Allah's creation. And inshallah ta'ala later on we'll come and present some of those universal signs. The second issue is to reflect upon Allah's legitimate signs. Al-Quran. Okay, look into Allah's statement to us. Understand Allah's statement to us. And see what the ulama tafsir are saying. And see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tashri' legislation is fit really for every time. And it is the way out for mankind throughout time. You want safety, you want to be secure, you want to be living and prosper in a place where you feel secure and safe, then read the Quran, understand the Quran, understand the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you and to us and what He wants from us subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thirdly, to take care of the books of Islam, the books especially that present Islam and prove that Islam is sound, is logical, fits every community. So read the book that speaks about the superiority of Islam, how Islam is superior, how Islam is great, how Islam fits in every place. Also, another issue, the fourth issue, speaking about Allah Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala through His names and attributes. See how we through Allah's kamal, Allah's completeness subhanahu wa ta'ala in His attributes, how it reflects upon our existence, how through Allah's perfection in His attributes we are enjoying this life in every aspect. So understand Allah's names and attributes. Of course, understand their meaning, but not the how to, the kayfiyah. Understand the meaning and see the impact of Allah's names and attributes upon us subhanahu wa ta'ala. See how great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, the exalted He is. When we look into that, learn that, for sure such matter will help us have strong faith in Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah ta'ala, our faith is not a blind faith where you just follow blindly and follow our forefathers because my father said this, I'm doing this. No. Islam is telling us to go read and look ourselves and question what goes around us and to be convinced in what we are doing. So the Quran gives you this, the Sunnah gives you this. The ulama of Islam who wrote early and still writing to in a different language or level of language to reach to everyone and make the Quran understanding and Sunnah so accessible to even to the lay people. They are serving this purpose, that Islam is deen. That Islam is a deen azim, a great deen, which is established on strong, logical foundation. It's not emotional. It's not something that we follow our emotions and then that's it. No, our deen is based on logical arguments that in every issue we see the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other issue, to pay attention to the ibadat of al-qulub, the acts of worship of the heart. Al-khawf, al-raja, al-mahabba, al-inaba, al-tawba, al-tawakkul, al-taqwa. So those values, once it is well learned, well understood, and we look to the righteous predecessors, how were they when it comes to these issues, we try to imitate them and follow their track. Certainly, such matters will make you venerate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart and glorify Him, the exalted He is. So we need to work on our hearts. Sometimes when we see ourselves so much carried away with this dunya, chasing it to cover some of our demands, taking care of the families, ourselves, our school, tuitions, supporting the families and so on, we need to put everything into perspective. So once you work on your issue of the qalb, the actions of the heart, this will help you really put things into perspective. Once you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which I should put tawakkul upon Him, then you shall behave in this world in a manner that shows that you are putting everything into perspective. Prioritize everything in this life. Because you know what tawakkul is. And you know that tawakkul is صدق الاعتماد على الله, to truthfully trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala مع الأخذ بالأسباب المشروعة while following the legitimate reasons. Right? So we follow reason. That does not mean we neglect tawakkul upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have tawakkul in the first place and we follow legitimate reasons to achieve whatever we wish in this dunya. Once we behave in a such manner, then the way in which we enjoy life will not be any regular way. It shall be something which is love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place. And this is a matter in which we should pay attention to that. Am I winning the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or am I losing it? Once you pay attention to such values, you'll make sure that you are behaving in a manner which is pleasing to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these issues will help you do ta'ziz to your yaqeen, will solidify your certitude in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another issue beside ta'ziz al-yaqeen, to solidify your yaqeen, is al-ta'sil al-shar'i, to establish yourself when it comes to knowledge. Seek knowledge and make sure that you pay attention to this issue, because your entire aqidah, your entire belief is based on this: acquiring knowledge and putting time for knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the better saved you are from the shaitan and the trap of the shaitan. The more knowledge you have, the closer you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like in the hadith in Muslim, من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة. Whoever goes upon a path seeking knowledge, Allah through this journey will ease for him a path to Jannah. So it is the path of Jannah. It is the quickest path to Jannah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like the other hadith where he said, peace be upon him, مثل العابد, like he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said فضل العابد أحسن فضل العابد على العالم كفضل على أدناكم. فضل العالم على العابد كفضل على أدناكم. The superiority of the abid, of the alim over the abid is like the superiority of Prophet Muhammad over the least of the Sahaba. Can you imagine the difference? Abid is praying all the time, doing acts of worship, yet the alim, there is no comparison how superior he is. Why? Knowledge makes his ibadah correct. Knowledge is a guidance for him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the hadith goes on later on, أن الله وملائكته حتى الحوت في الماء. Allah and his angels, even the fish in the water, يستغفرون لمعلم الناس الخير. They do istighfar for the person who teach people goodness, al-alim who teaches others subhanahu wa ta'ala. So put in your mind that I want to acquire knowledge for myself in the first place, and secondly to convey to the others. وإن العلماء ورثة الأنبياء وإن الأنبياء لم يورثوا دينارا ولا درهما. That the true heirs of the prophets are the ulama. I mean, imagine the level, ikhwa. You are, when you are in this path, you are among the heirs of the prophets. This is not anything easy, subhanAllah, before Allah Azza wa Jalla. This is a position which is taken and followed by the prophets. And you are following their track, subhanAllah. So in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not any regular person. So attend this in your heart, that I should work in putting time on a daily basis in which I gain more knowledge. I put a program for myself in aqidah, in fiqh, in علوم الآلة, like أصول الفقه, مصطلح الحديث, اللغة العربية. So just start and put a schedule. Wallahi, ikhwa, you'll be surprised that in a few years you're getting there, inshallah ta'ala. You're acquiring good knowledge. It's a matter of just putting the right schedule and putting commitment to that schedule. You'll be surprised how far you'll reach within a year or two. So do not belittle the half an hour, the 1 hour that you put on a daily basis. Put time before that for the Quran, in which you read and memorize. Like I said, we reflect also upon the Quran. So the Quran is the foundation of this ilm. And then comes the Sunnah. So do not say, I will learn hadith, mustalah hadith, and neglect the Quran. No, start with the Quran, ya ikhwan. Pay attention to the Quran, give it a priority. Put time for reading the Quran, for memorizing Quran on a daily basis. And let the Quran also be part of your salah. This will make your salah different. Once you memorize a new ayat and you put it into your salah will not be any regular salah. It's not when you stand for salah and every day you read Qul huwallahu ahad, Qul a'udhu birabbin nas. You sit even like when you met some people, Allah musta'an, may Allah also forgive us. Sometimes you stand as if you are on auto drive. And you don't know what you're reciting, but you just find out, I'm doing taslim now. When you memorize new ayat and you put it into your salah, the salah is different. The salah becomes different. It has spirit. So pay attention to this effort. تأصيل الشرعي, and at the same time practice what you learn to the best that you can. The third issue, which is something that we need to be very much aware of. Do not go and read in the books of Shubuhat. So, if you want to protect yourself, don't go and read the books of Shubuhat. But I want to understand the Shubha and then understand how to refute it. Alhamdulillah ta'ala, we have scholars specialized in this field who have sufficed us from having to disturb ourselves and waste time and commute ourselves in learning, understanding what so and so from the atheist or the deviant one had said. So once we are established in yaqeen, certitude, we have ilm shari'i, and we are seeking knowledge and we are excelling in this path, if we are confronted with any shubha, alhamdulillah ta'ala, go get a book from one of the scholars who are specialized in that field, and he had sufficed you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll see him giving you a very straightforward, simple answer, which is so easy to understand and so easy even to deliver it to the others. Look to the level of time you'll be saving when you go directly to the specialized person and refute that shubha. But if you're going to go more into the shubha itself and take it from those who are spreading it, you'll find yourself confused. And certainly such shubha, it touches the heart. And don't say, no, I'll reach a level of mashallah, I'm alim. No. Like I said, there was an example here in this land. Abdullah al-Qasimi. This guy was a scholar here a few decades back. And he even wrote a book in Tawheed. Imagine. But he was so much exposed to the books of the philosophers and the atheists. And he was so much reading in these books. He ended up an atheist himself. So when you see our Raj predecessors saying to the Mubtadi'ah, إِمَّا أَن تَقُومَ أَوْ أَقُومَ, either you go away or I go away, they know the consequence of sitting with these people and listening to them and opening your heart and your ear for them. They will leave a trace of filth in your heart if you just open your mind and heart listening to them. So be careful of this. Never go and read a shubha from those who are distributing it. Rather, go to the ulama who have learned and knew this shubha and written how to refute such shubha. And of course, and finally, and before all that, a dua. We should constantly ask Allah's help and protection. And again, we present our trust in Him and display our need for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala all the way. And let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sense that we are really in need for Him. We cannot make a step without Him being around us and for us and taking care of us. So these are some of the matters that we need to be aware of before we get into presenting the usul of al-Iman, and then later on presenting the barahin, the proofs for the usul of al-Iman, inshallah ta'ala. So how are we doing when it comes to time? Do we have more time?
Yeah. 15 minutes, I think.
طيب, how much time did
It's
we spend?
9:30. We can go to 9:45. inshallah.
9:45. Okay. طيب, no problem. If you have any questions so far,
Just one question. The serial wise, you told that first we should observe the last universal signs. Then we should go to the Quran. Is it serial wise, or it can be anything based on our interest?
It's fine. This or that, it's fine. It's fine. Sometimes you feel from yourself that I need to look into Allah's signs, Allah's universal signs. Because what goes around me really is touching my yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this could be a mean in which to bring back your yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So it depends upon the person himself. But not necessarily if I'm going to do reflect and ponder upon the universal signs, I neglect the legitimate signs. I can do both them equally. This is fine. In fact, it should be done equally. It should be done equally on a daily basis. You have time to reflect upon Allah's universal signs, and it's part of your daily routine that you are putting time for Allah's legitimate signs and reading them, understanding them, and memorizing them, and applying them in your life and so on.
Sheikh, you said the debates that happen in the West on the complex issues are of no use. So, what if this is the modern, this is how the things will proceed, and kids will ask these questions in the future? So, shouldn't we equip ourselves?
Yes, we should. We should. But what are the means in which we can trust in order to acquire the right knowledge and then to deliver it to the others? What I'm saying is that the debates that are going in the West, if it gives you a level of knowledge, it is mixed with some wrong approach of trying to convince the others. And let me give you an example. The issue of the Big Bang, right? Sometimes they say, you atheists believe that this universe has a beginning. To the atheist, when he says this, he says, beginning is what? There is no time, no space before that. They say time and space started at that moment. And we see the Muslim is accepting his argument, and he's debating with him and continuing his argument that yes, this is the beginning of time and space. But Allah was before that. The Arsh was there before that. The water was there before that. The angels were there before that. There was time and there was space before that. So this is how, if you look deeply into the scientific approach that some of the Islamic du'at are using, it may backfire at them. It may backfire at them. And not only that, you are, when you carry on with their way of argument, as if you are accepting their premises, that this is the beginning of time and space. And in fact, I have seen some du'a, they say this is the beginning of time and space, which is not correct. Which is not correct. The Big Bang theory in itself, it's still a theory. It's not a fact. It's not a law. It's not a reality, right? Even if it was proven a reality, there was still time and space before that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-doing. Al-fa'al, fa'al ma yurid. There was never a time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was unable to do, right? So when it comes to measuring time, they say time is the gap between two actions. This is the time. This is how they measure time. But the time that Allah was in is not like our time. Okay? And they say the time in the first place, it is something mental. It's not something physical. It's not something physical in the outside. You can see. You don't say this is time walking by, right? It is something mental. So you cannot say this is the beginning of time, and you as a da'iyah accept this and neglect that there was time before that time. There was even maybe there were creatures even before that. There were creatures before that. So when you try to convince this scientific atheist that there was no matter, there was no law, there was no even vacuum, there was no energy, is this true? Not true. So look how much wrong information you are conveying to us Muslims who are watching this debate. And later on, when we accept this issue, you may find the atheist having a point in what he's saying. So really, we need to be very careful. The source of knowledge, we need to understand what are the source of knowledge. The source of knowledge are the ulama. It's not debates and da'wah, street da'wah. This is not the right way to acquire knowledge from. Somebody is calling someone to Islam and is presenting good proofs and so on. Yes, but that person who's giving da'wah, when you go back to the knowledge and where he acquired it from, you see, he only just read books himself. Yani. He did not sit before ulama or listen to ulama and have well-established knowledge in aqidah. Now he's qualified to go out and speak in the street. Right? So seriously, and sadly, wallah, big names, sometimes they are doing good jobs in some fields. But you look into their aqidah, it disturbs you, wallah. It disturbs you. One person who's doing great activity in the West, in fighting the liberals and the feminists and so on, but when it comes to aqidah, he said that Jubandis are fine. Jubandis are fine. But did you read what the Jubandis are saying in their books? You are cheating the Ummah by saying such statement. So we need to know what are the right sources in which we take knowledge from. Not any person who is articulate over the internet, I open my mind and heart for him. We need to be very careful. Because those people, they may do a level of goodness, but at the same time, they may do some harm. Some harm to our aqidah, not to our dunya issue, to our aqidah itself, subhanAllah. So we need to be very careful. Hopefully this gives you an idea of where I'm getting at and how what goes on those debates can really be harmful. Barakallah.
Human behaviorism as well, and these things also can be studied so that we can human behaviorism and everything, because it comes under the category of social psychology something.
Okay.
That is a very
Sociology, psychology.
yes, social psychology something.
Right.
So is it okay or something? So like how the experiment they have done and this way, how human reacts this way.
I mean, as a dunya
As a dunya
major, yani.
as kind of like
Somebody goes to university to study sociology, for instance, or psychology, for instance. The field itself is fine, right?
Okay.
But again, sadly, I mean, the Western universities, they teach you sociology, psychology from the Western perspective. And especially sociology, it comes to understanding the communities and how to deal with the communities and so on. So they'll give you their values. And sadly, those who come back from those places and try to teach the same field within the Muslim countries, they transmit the same Western values. So if somebody needs to take such measure, take it in a Muslim country where it is very trustworthy. What they are teaching, like for instance, some of the Islamic universities, they teach this measure. Go take it there. Don't go to the West to learn sociology or psychology. But go there, and I do not recommend to go there, but there is a major which is scientific, for instance, that we don't have no knowledge of. And if you go there, you'll be serving the Ummah, introducing new science to the Ummah, which will make it stronger. Then you may go there while you are meeting the requirements of moving to a non-Muslim land. That you are well established in Aqidah, and that you also go there to give da'wah at the same time, and you know how to protect yourself, and so on. But sadly, this is not happening these days. It's not happening. We see a person who is married with his children, he goes to the West, and then he sticks there. He doesn't want to go back. And his children grow there. And he takes them to public schools. And a few years later, he loses control over his children. And then he comes wailing and crying, I lost my kids, I lost my family. This is a known issue that this is going to be the consequence if you move to such land. And some of them, they say, no, Ana, mashallah, I have ilm and I have knowledge and I'll be able to protect myself. And you see him losing his children. Because the way they are in the West, it is designed to influence you. If they fail to really influence you, they will not miss influencing your kids. It is designed in such a manner, especially when they open the door for migration, for people to migrate to there. They know that you as a first generation, maybe they will not do much damage to you, but your kids, trust me, they'll be gone. And maybe kids or grandkids will say, my father used to be a Muslim. My grandfather used to be a Muslim. And we have heard about such stories. How ridda, apostasy, is happening to the Muslim youth in the West. It's growing, it's scary. Why is this happening? The environment itself, the lifestyle itself. Women are leaving Islam, feminists, leaving Islam because of the ideas they instill into the children in that region. So we need to be very careful. Tamam? If there are any questions, ya ikhwa. Okay, we'll call it off here, inshallah ta'ala. And we'll start the topic coming class, inshallah ta'ala. Sharakallahu fikum wa jazakumullah khair.
How can we counter an argument with